Yeah.
Let's get
Ready?
Let's get first and
3, 2, 1. Let's get some buckets.
Give it some more. Give it some more of that. Come on. Give it better.
3, 2, 1. Let's get some buckets.
British for British.
Woohoo! Whoa! Welcome everybody here to Basketball Passport. I am Anthony Irwin, joined as always by Leigh Ellis, who in that clip was celebrating the getting of buckets with folks out there in Los Angeles. And that is basically the crux of the show is, we get together and we talk about basketball. It is a sport that we know and love. And then we also kind of dive into Leigh's travels over the years. And now Sunday episodes are a little bit more focused on what's going on locally or domestically. And then Thursdays we get out, well, I guess Fridays now we get out and travel a little bit. So this Sunday episode we'll be focusing on the most disappointing teams so far this season. We'll be talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are the exact opposite of that. They have been incredible to watch this year. And then LeBron is about to invent a club that, the latest LeBron only club. So we will go ahead and talk about that and marvel at this latest achievement that he's getting close to. And then there at the final segment of the show, we will be teasing where Leigh will be taking us on Friday this week, which, is a cool little reference to a guy who is in the news quite a bit lately. So, Leigh, how you holding up? How was your weekend?
Good. Yeah, good. Thanks. Beautiful weekend out here in Atlanta. And looking forward to heading out to Ljubljana, Slovenia on Friday. This one's been on the back burner here for a few weeks. I was going to talk about it around the trade. I can't remember why something came up instead, but had some fun times out there in Slovenia. Really underrated country. And actually one of those ones I didn't know where it was before I left. And then I was like, it's actually pretty easy to get to. It's not that, it's not sort of tucked away as I thought it was. So great place. Looking forward to that one.
I'm not going to lie. I found I hope, clever way of not saying the name of the region that you're going to, because I wanted you to say it first, and then I could pick up on that and then go for. So it's Ljubljana.
Ljubljana, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Good to know for future reference. Let's go ahead and dive on in. Quick reminder: please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button if you guys are watching live right now. If you guys are on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@basketballpassport to find the show there. And then if you guys are listening to this in podcast form in the morning, hit that subscribe button, hit that 5-star review button, and subscribe to the show wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, with us being company men. All right. Let's dive on in, though, by talking about this season's most disappointing teams. We do so on the heels of news that Joel Embiid is going to be out for the season. And, obviously just a continued disappointment there in Philly. I'm sure they'll come up. We also got news that the Orlando Magic are going to be without Jalen Suggs for, it appears, I think the rest of the at least the regular season, as he got surgery on his knee. I don't know how disappointing they've been per se. Yeah. I don't think they had great expectations going into the season. Leigh, which is the team that I think there are two main options here? Yeah, you could really pick from. Which is the one that you're going to go with?
Well, I wouldn't go Philadelphia because I honestly was skeptical going into the season for a couple of reasons. I saw them down here in Atlanta for a preseason game. And even then, Paul George was like, he's not ready. He's not, he's not 100%. Now, I thought, okay, he plays himself into the season. He might be okay. Embiid wasn't right then either. And I thought, without those two guys, they're going to struggle. Tyrese Maxey, I rate him highly. I think he's an all-star player. He wasn't this year. He was last year, but I think that's, again, because of the record. So I actually don't have Philadelphia as a disappointment because I didn't think they were going to be all that good. I obviously thought they were going to be better than they are. But the other team, I think it's down to two. I think it's down to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that trade for Towns was just awful, and we're starting to see that. The Knicks are flying. The Timberwolves are struggling. But I really actually think it's the Phoenix Suns because right now they are 3.5 games out of the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's enough time left for them to get in. And, one of the reasons I've got them as a big disappointment because they fired Frank Vogel in the offseason and almost the next day it seemed like they hired Mike Budenholzer. And Mike Budenholzer, love him or hate him, I think he's a very good regular season coach and he's a very good offensive coach. And I thought the Suns could win. I don't love their defense. I don't even really love the makeup of that team. But I thought with Beal in his second season, Booker and Durant now having a little bit more time as well to get together, I was like, they could win 55 games here. Now, I didn't really think they were a contender because I didn't like the defense. And I just saw what we saw last season when they got swept in the first round by the Timberwolves, which seems like that happened, a generation ago now when you look at both of those teams. But really, if the Suns, with all that money that they've invested, they've got no draft picks for about 7 years of their own control anyway here, to not even make the play-in with Kevin Durant, Hall of Famer, just made 30,000 points himself. Devin Booker, very, very good player, all-star, and not this season, but, in part. Oh, no, he was actually, yeah. And Bradley Beal, I just think that's a complete disaster that they won't even very likely at this stage make the play-in. They're 3.5 games back, I say, of the Mavericks, and then the Wolves are ahead of them. I don't think there's enough time, and I think you saw at the trade deadline there the fact that they were prepared to trade Kevin Durant. That's like the ownership, Matt Ishbia, there saying, all right, this ain't working. We've got no draft capital. It's time to start at least trying to get some skin back in the game here where we can, get some more talent because they haven't got any cap room either. So, Ishbia came in, made the big splash. It seemed short-sighted at the time to give up that youth in Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. And now they are paying for it, and they're not even close. They're not close because it doesn't really matter now either without their draft picks where they finish, and they're not going to even make the play-in. And even if they did make the play-in, I don't think they're a chance to get to the playoffs. So I've got the Suns. I think it's just been a disaster this season.
Yeah, you mentioned Philly at the top and why you don't think they're as much of a disappointment. And like to me, it's pretty basic, right? It's pretty rudimentary why they aren't quote unquote disappointing in the way that the Suns are, is that Philly's just been hurt.
Yeah.
They haven't had Joel Embiid basically all year. And when they did, he didn't look very good. He hasn't looked good dating back to the Olympics, frankly. He had like one good stretch there against Jokic in that game against Serbia. But outside of that, the whole time, anybody who watched that team knew that he only continued to start because he was given, it would appear, some kind of a promise when he decided to play for Team USA and not for France. And so, like, I don't know, like you said at the off the top, nobody who saw them or were aware of the situation coming into the season could have really honestly believed all that much in that team. And even by those standards, I think they've disappointed. It's that meme, right? That the guy holding up a sign was like, my expectations were low, but holy bleep. Like,
it's a great one. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite memes.
Yeah.
That's basically the Sixers this year. Paul George waited until they were 17 games below 500 to stop podcasting because he thinks now it's too big of a distraction. And
they go out and beat the Warriors.
Right. And then Tyrese Maxey has been like kind of trying to carry this team the whole time. And he's a fun story, but he's not like carry an organization type of talent. And it's just been kind of a mess there. The Suns, though, don't have that excuse. They really haven't dealt with too much injuries with the most expensive roster in the sport. Kevin Durant hasn't missed too many games. And now the stretches that he did miss did sink their season. They were a disaster when KD didn't play. But Bradley Beal has mostly been around. Devin Booker has mostly been around. Sounds like Mike Budenholzer would prefer that he wasn't as around and as vocal. That was one of the weirder reports I can ever recall.
Yeah,
a head coach telling his star, "Hey man, please lead us less." That's a wild one.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball here though. I think the Chicago Bulls, to me, are the most disappointing team. And I never thought that they were going to win a championship this year. Nobody ever did. But they just continue to like aim for mediocrity. And when you when you aim for mediocrity and you just like you're content with sitting on that treadmill of mediocrity, you're never going to really accomplish anything, right? You knew coming into the season that they needed to undergo a full-blown rebuild. They never really started that. Like, yeah, they traded away Zach LaVine, but they traded him for players that would continue them being mediocre. They didn't trade away Vucevic because they weren't happy. Like they were expecting multiple firsts, if not a first and seconds on top of it for Vucevic. Nobody's giving that up for him in that contract. And here they sit again, where they're basically like they cannot. It's funny to watch your old colleague, Taco Trey, like get annoyed at the fact that they can't exit the 10 seed. They just like they're stuck. It doesn't matter what they do. They just like cannot. They can't find a way to lose enough to get out of the play-in and become a lottery team.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I get really frustrated with larger markets and bad ownership. And I think that ownership situation there in Chicago was among the worst in professional sports. Jim Dolan finally hired the CAA people to, give his franchise that facelift. I really think it's, and I'm blanking on the owner's name there.
It's Reinsdorf.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, Reinsdorf. Like he has basically since Michael Jordan has retired, or he ran Michael Jordan out of Chicago. They have been in unmitigated disaster. Frankly, they almost killed Luol Deng, and they ended. They cut short a lot of those like really exciting players' careers. I don't know. I'm waiting for one day for the Chicago Bulls to go in a direction. And this year it seems so clear which direction they needed to go in, and they haven't found a way to go that direction.
Yeah, well, speaking of my old colleague Trey Kirby, I saw him at the game on Friday night against the Thunder, and he was aghast. He's just exhausted, I think, from being a Bulls fan for most of those reasons you say there. They're just absolutely in no man's land with no real direction. And one of the things he pointed out was Billy Donovan largely left OKC because he didn't want to be a part of a rebuild. Well, what's going to happen now? Because the Bulls literally have no choice but to start rebuilding there. And which direction do they go? Because Josh Giddey, the Australian point guard there, he's in a really interesting spot. He's a restricted free agent going into this summer. They traded for him last season, of course, giving up Caruso to get him, which, sorry to bring that one up, but I know that still hurt you.
Not getting any draft capital for Alex Caruso.
Yeah.
Is insane.
And Giddey in the month of February had maybe his best month of his career, huge numbers. But what is he worth going into the new TV money deal as well? I mean, is he going to get 4 years or 5 years at 40 million a season? Because that's kind of going to be the going rate for a starting young point guard who's, he's got some, absolute talent there. Still got to figure out that shot. The 3-point shot has been falling for him again in the month of February. But again, is that partly because the Bulls are just in that, position where nobody really knows what they're doing? I mean, they're 13 games below 500 right now. The Hawks and the Bulls are almost certainly going to play for the 9th and 10th spot in the play-in tournament. They're right now a combined 19 games below 500, whereas the Wolves and the Mavs are 6 games over 500. In that sense, the Phoenix Suns, and the Blazers would both be in the East play-in if they were in the East. But that's beside the point. So the Bulls, I mean, they're disappointing in a vacuum of this season, but collectively from where they've been over the last few years to where they are now, it's kind of like just keep running it back. And it must be maddening because, the Vucevic, I mean, he's been on the block for a while. LaVine was on the block forever. And I think the Bulls just seem to, overvalue their own players so much where they think, this guy's worth multiple firsts, we'll hold out until we get that. And when it doesn't happen, they just run back the same sort of squad and unsurprisingly get the same results.
Yeah. Crazy. The definition of insanity, right? Is
exactly, yeah,
trying the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
It
and
is,
then what's
it
funny is that
it-
like the Sacramento Kings looked at like the
Yeah.
mediocrity that have been the Chicago Bulls over the last 5 years, and we're like, you know what? Bring them over here. DeMar
Yeah.
DeRozan, sure. Zach LaVine, bring it on.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, let's recreate that. I'm like, both of you guys, just like be normal. Like,
Yeah.
figure it out, be normal.
It-
But
it-
I'm with you though. Like the most disappointing team is easily the Phoenix Suns, and
Yeah.
I legitimately like, yeah, sure, okay, they're gonna trade Kevin Durant this year because they literally don't have enough draft capital to convince somebody to take on Bradley Beal's contract, and he has that no trade clause.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant is the only player that they have on their roster who anybody would want, that they're open to trading, because they aren't interested in trading Devin Booker because he for some reason wants to stay there. So like they're going to trade Kevin Durant. I don't know what they'll get back for him in terms of draft capital and players, and will they continue to try to contend now? Will they start looking to cut costs and try to enter a bit of a rebuild while Devin Booker is still there? If you rebuild while Devin Booker is still there, you're never going to have high-end draft capital because he's going to stop you from outright tanking. So I really don't know. Like, not only are the Phoenix Suns disappointing this season in their own right, and in like, honestly, historic fashion, how disappointing they've been this year. But I also have no idea where the hell they go from here. And none of what they've done to this point makes very much sense. They've chased bad money with bad money with bad money, and now that check his landed on the table, and Ishbia is looking at it like, well, it seemed fun at the time.
Yeah.
And mistakes were made.
Well, and the other thing is, with KD, like Brian Windhorst said the other day, like they're going to trade him, and KD knows that, so
yeah,
that is just really, really a tough situation that it's out in the open, so blatantly like that. It's like, okay, yeah, we're trading him, and if you're going to trade him, if they don't consider trading Booker, then they're going to just stay where they are. They may as well at this point say, okay, if we can trade Durant and Booker, we can get some draft picks back, and then Beal is going to almost certainly want to waive that no trade clause so he can get out of there as well. And go
even
somewhere.
if he doesn't, it's not like he stops you from tanking.
No,
the Wizards
exactly.
were able to tank while he was there the entirety of his
But
career,
it's a way of sort of, it's a way of kind of basically saying to him, like, do you want to be on this roster that's going to be then just, filled with young guys and the team's not there? Then he's going to, want to go. So I would consider it at this point and just say to Booker, like, if you want to stay, man. But we're trying to move on and start again, and go there because. But Ishbia, it reminded me of Prokhorov when he went to the Nets and he just made that insane trade where he gave up the unprotected picks that turned into Brown and Tatum and someone else too. I can't remember exactly who it was, but either way, Brown and Tatum been to the finals twice, won the championship, been to the conference finals several times already. Like. The impatience of a filthy rich owner is it's hilarious for all us, because I remember when they did trade for Durant, it's like, of course, if you get a chance, you've got to make a deal, but I would just not have given up Johnson and Bridges. I would have,
and the draft capital.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you would have been like, and Bridges, I would have done my very best to hold on to and say, listen, we need him. We need his defense. He's a great fit on this team, but. It didn't happen. But, the only other team I would sort of throw in there, I think, is the Minnesota Timberwolves. But again, I sort of point the finger more at the management, the ownership, rather than the team, because right before the season, they traded Towns, and they're just, they gave the keys of the franchise to Edwards, and fair enough, he was ready for it. He's been good if you look at his numbers, but you know what? I think he's not quite ready for that leadership growth.
Mm-hmm. He told us. He just said it out loud. He's like, I don't want to be the face of the NBA.
Yeah, but also for his team, he's been irresponsible in the way that he's got all these techs. He's now been suspended. Now every time he gets two more techs, he gets another game, and look, he's probably frustrated. I can understand that with the team. They make the conference finals there, and now they'll be struggling to get out of the play-in. So I understand that, but I think there's a few other problems there. The ball doesn't move as well as it did last year. You've got Mike Conley starting to show his age a little bit too. He gets hunted on defensive matchups, and again, he's 37, and you can't really expect much out of a guy who. Great vet, a lot of respect for Mike Conley, but he's 37. So I think the Wolves made a terrible decision. The Mavs made a worse decision, but the Wolves were in the clubhouse leader for worst decision of the season prior to Nico Harrison losing his mind.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that, like, of every team that we've mentioned so far, only one has had protests outside their building.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Dallas belongs on this list, and they're doing so in a season where I believe they are now in the play-in. They're going to probably reside around there because of the injuries to their front court and all that stuff. Kyrie has been fantastic for them this year and kept them kind of afloat while all this is going on. But only one team this season, I think, has legitimately lost a portion of its fan base. Obviously, to those of you who follow the show, I host Lakers Lounge. Our numbers since the Luka trade are up almost like 65, 70%. And I think a big chunk of it is just Mavs fans who are like, bleep those guys. I'm following Luka, and that is a very modern concept. Like, I think LeBron James was, the first player who had his own fan base that they started rooting for him in Cleveland, and then they rooted for him in Miami, and then they rooted for him in LA and continue to root for him there. And I think we're seeing that kind of take place with Luka, where it's like, I didn't really care much about Dallas before. Now he's not there anymore, and I really don't care about those guys. I guess I'll root for the Lakers now. And to those of you, welcome. Water's nice. But yeah, I really think, like, the more that I think about it, I think I'd vote for Dallas being the most disappointing team this year. It's such a befuddling move that, one, they executed really poorly, and two, they continue to double, triple, and quintuple down on the reasons why they did it and make them look even worse after the fact.
Yeah.
I really think that it's Nico Harrison and it's Jason Kidd and it's that ownership group that, you mentioned Ishbia being a new owner and stuff like that. I really think it's a plague. New owners with fan bases are a plague on sports, because they show up, and I think there's a level of arrogance because they have made enough money to buy themselves a professional team. And sure, they've ruled their own industries really well to an extent where they can buy a professional team for billions and billions and billions of dollars. But then you step into this world where the billionaires are competing against each other on a more level playing field, and they come to realize, oh, dang, this is a lot harder than just being able to throw all the money at it in the way that we have been up to this point in our lives. And I really feel terrible for Mavericks fans. I feel terrible for Suns fans. And we'll see where things go from here.
Yeah. I mean, that it is like a big episode of Shark Tank, where they're all filthy rich and they usually just get what they want, but then they're competing with other guys who also get what they want. And that's when they start bickering with each other, and they can form allegiances very, very quickly, but they can also turn on each other so quickly as well.
Fast.
But remember, of course, when Cuban did come in, the big thing he did was sign Dennis Rodman because he wanted some flair and some flamboyance, and that blew up in his face pretty quickly. So, but that's the thing. I honestly believe exactly what you said is when you're a billionaire, you've gotten to that point by basically ruthlessly getting what you want. And so you think that is going to translate to the NBA world, where if you're Ishbia and you're like, man, we can get Kevin Durant, go get him. Like, he's better than whatever we have to give up as long as we keep these guys. They didn't do that. And now it's like, oh my God, it's somehow we're in a dreadful position with no leverage, no assets, of significance and nothing, draft wise to look at. So it's going to force him to change his way. And again, Prokhorov did the same thing where he said, I expect playoffs in, I think, year 2 and a championship in year 5. And it's like you're running around with 35-year-old Paul Pierce and 38-year-old Jason
Kevin
Terry,
Durant.
I think it was, and Kevin Durant, who again was still decent, but nowhere near as fearsome. And he wasn't. There was no red flags when Danny Ainge was like, yes, you can have all those
Yeah,
guys.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's the thing. So like I've been waiting for like when they traded for Luka. I'm a very cynical person by nature. And so when they traded for Luka, I was like, man, maybe it's a red flag that they just don't want this guy anymore.
Yeah.
And then like 5 minutes later, after he's completed like 3 of the most ridiculous passes I've ever seen, it's like, no, they're just dumb.
It's just
they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
The people who do appear to know what they're doing are the Cleveland Cavaliers because they have been fantastic this year.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who host the Cavs official podcast, I think the Chase Down. It's Justin Rowan and Carter. And they I saw one of them tweet out earlier today that the Cavs have had like 2 kind of meh runs this season where they've like lost 3 of 5, and then they, I think, a different time lost 5 of 8. If you take those stretches out of the season, they're 45-2 this year.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that they aren't like the Atlanta Hawks, and they aren't a regular season only team, but I do think they have enough size and versatility, not just up front, but also in their wing positions, that they can actually be a little bit better than those Hawks teams were, where that whole team won Player of the Month, and then went on to lose to the to LeBron every
Swept.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you think about this Cavs team?
Yeah, well, they've already clinched the playoffs. They've already won 50 games. I think that is significant. It's March the 2nd. I think they clinched actually 2 nights ago or 2 games ago. And that was also then culminated in the victory in Boston on Friday night. The Celtics jumped out to an incredible start, up 22 points in the first quarter. Tatum and Brown are telling the Cavs fans, get out of here, get the F out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is really strange behavior for them. In the first quarter of an NBA game, a 20-point lead means nothing.
Yeah.
And this Cavs team has shown this season that, like, they don't worry about what happens in the first quarter. You've got to make sure you close them out. And the Cavs came back and won that game. And Donovan Mitchell, 41, he's so much fun to watch when he's got it going. Like sometimes the shot's not falling, but when it is, he has just got the strut and the swagger. And I really think, looking at what I've seen, the Celtics are a funny team because they won the championship fairly and squarely last season, convincingly. Pretty much a faultless season, a smooth season. There was no conflict or drama. They cruised through the season, cruised through the playoffs and got the championship. But coming into this season, they were the favorite, but they just don't seem a convincing champ to me. Like, where I'm just like,
yeah,
it's like, how are they sort of dropping off? They should be just strutting through the season themselves this year, but they're not doing that. And the Cavs instead seem to be a much better team. 7.5 game lead they have on them right now. They've won 10 in a row. And just looking at the Cavs schedule that's coming up here, I mean, they're in cruise control from now until the playoffs start. Now, that's a bit of a dangerous position to be in because you don't want to take your eye off the ball here. But they've got the Bulls, the Heat, the Hornets, the Bucks, Nets, and Grizzlies coming up. So, I mean, they could rattle off easily another 15 or, we get to 15 straight here without losing. And, of course, they started the season by winning their first 15 before they lost, ironically at Boston. But they've improved since then. And another reason why I wanted to talk about them is I actually asked Kenny Atkinson at the All-Star weekend. I said, look, things have been going so well. You've got a huge lead over the second place team, which is the Celtics. How do you make sure the guys stay focused? And he's a great coach for those sorts of things. And he said, look, strong locker room, strong leaders, one game at a time, doesn't matter where we are, just got to keep on focusing. And I think with these guys, there's a good mix of vets and young guys. I feel that we will be okay with it. And again, you come out after the All-Star break, win those games that they have since the All-Star break, unbeaten, and they've won 1, 2, 3, 6 in a row, of course, and it culminated. They won again today, but it culminated in that huge comeback win over their biggest rival and challenger in the East. And so, I think it's great. I'm happy for the Cavs. Again, I think everyone kind of loves Kenny Atkinson and just watching his teams, because it does look to me just like those Nets teams that weren't anywhere near as good as the Cavs, but they look like they're fun and they look like they really enjoy playing with each other.
Speaking of unfortunate decisions made while Kevin Durant is around, he and Kyrie Irving and James Harden pushed for Kenny Atkinson to get fired so they could hire Steve Nash. And that decision does not appear to have aged very well. We talked on the last episode on Friday, Leigh, when we were talking about the Lakers, about the 40-20 club and Phil Jackson's 40-20 club. The Cleveland Cavaliers might be nearing the 50 or the 60-20 club, because they're 50-10 right now. And if you had to guess, will they win 10 games before they lose 10 games? And
I would say
probably
yes.
Win.
I would take that bet if you're offering it to me.
Right. So you have the Cavs that they're at least, I think, going to win 60 games. We're kind of in that area where it's like, let's see what number they actually land on.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, like you mentioned, that the Boston Celtics, I watched them play the Denver Nuggets today, and two things really stood out to me. One, in the first half, I thought the Celtics went to a lot of the strategies that the Lakers utilized when they beat the crap out of Denver a couple weeks back, where it's like Jokic has the ball, everybody has a foot in the paint. You absolutely clog that paint up as much as you can. And Christian Brown's open for three.
Yeah.
Okay. Julian Strawler's open for three. Okay. And even sometimes Michael Porter Jr.'s open from three. Okay. And as long as it isn't Jokic, or to some extent Jamal
Murray.
Thank you, Murray. I always want to call him Crawford. He is not Jamal Crawford. Although without Jokic, maybe he's close. But like but yeah, I was watching that game, and it really stood out to me the way that Boston was able to kind of shut off the Nuggets' water in the first half. But then you look up, and Denver made a game out of it. Denver came back and brought this thing close. And you mentioned how Boston, you would have thought, would look a lot more impressive this year. They returned a pretty old roster. Like it's actually underrated. Everybody thinks like the two J's with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, that they are younger than they actually are. But Drew Holiday is an older player. Al Horford is legitimately old outright. Kristaps Porzingis has lived some hard NBA years, so he moves around like an old man. I'm really kind of fascinated to see how a series would go between the Cavs and the Celtics. I think I would probably take the Cavs in that one, just because I think they have more life in their legs. And so long as both teams are healthy, I think the Cavs would be pretty concerted favorites in that series. So I really fun season there from Cleveland. And I'm fascinated because they don't, I normally don't like teams that have two small guards as their backcourt. Donovan Mitchell is 6'3". I think Darius Garland is around there as well. I normally don't like teams that have that kind of makeup, but they're so big everywhere else, on the wing, up front. They're so skilled and versatile defensively and offensively.
Yeah.
That I really like the makeup of this Cavs team. And then DeAndre Hunter at the deadline was a great pickup. Absolutely incredible acquisition there that flew under the radar because he isn't Luka Doncic.
That was a great grab by the Cavs. And I think I said that at the trade deadline, that the Hawks, I think, looked at Hunter and thought, he's been here long enough. sell high on him because he was having a great season coming off the bench, really embraced that role. Perfect for what the Cavs need. Just another vet who can hit those threes. He's a very good defender. And they gave up, what was it, Niang and Levert to get him.
Right.
So really smart business there for the Cavs. I think his contract is going to have a little bit of an impact going forward. But right now, it's like we just need to tweak something. We don't need a big splash. You just need to improve at the deadline. And they absolutely did that. So, yeah, really smart business by Cleveland going out and getting Hunter. Hawks were looking to make some changes. Hunter's future is probably was something they were like, we might not get much more for him than what we have right now. So make the deal. And they did. And it's paying off for Cleveland in really, really impressively.
I was really hoping Hunter would be a Laker again. Hilarious.
Oh, he would be great on the Lakers too. Yeah,
I was really hoping that they would do that, but Rui has been playing well enough, and they didn't want to mess with the core, and it would have taken messing with the core to go out and get Hunter.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Lakers, LeBron is nearing another exclusive club. He would be the first player ever to cross 50,000 total points in his career between the regular season and postseason. I trying to see how close he is, but I think he's
18 points. I think it is.
He could get it as soon as tonight when the Lakers are playing he'll probably get it tonight because Austin Reeves
in the first quarter.
Yeah, Austin Reeves isn't playing tonight. Rui isn't playing tonight. So if the Lakers are going to be competitive, it's going to take a special effort from LeBron and likely also Luka. So we'll see how that goes. But how insane is it, Leigh, that he's crossing this 50,000 threshold, something nobody has ever done, and he's still, I don't know, is he a top 10 player?
Oh, easily, yeah.
It's absolutely wild that he's normally somebody's crossing these thresholds or inventing these clubs, and they're like dragging their feet to get there at the end of their careers.
Yeah,
LeBron's doing this. He's going to blow right through 50,000.
Well,
I don't know how far he can go.
He's technically already there because they're saying it's the regular season playoffs. What about the play-ins? He had 52 points in 2 playing games. He scored 22. He had a triple-double against the Warriors in 2021, and then he had 30 against the Timberwolves 2 years ago. So, he's already there. He's already cracked the 50,000. He's working on his next milestone.
Actually, I think on top of that, the in-season tournament final game, those stats don't count either, and they won a final. Like they beat the And I think he played really well in that final game because he saw that there was a good amount of money there for him if they won.
Yeah.
So, he definitely already blew through the stuff.
Yeah.
It's so insane that we're like, actually, no, he's already scored 50,000 points.
Yeah, because it's weird that they don't count those stats anywhere. Those ones should count. I get it that it's tough especially the play-in. It's like, it's not the playoffs because you're trying to play in to get in there, but it's not the regular season because that's finished. But it's like, well, it's got to count somewhere. There's still games.
It's more important than your typical regular season game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and then the in-season tournament, like you can't tell us that this in-season tournament really matters and then not count any of their stats. That doesn't make much sense.
Well, and All-Star games, he scored 434 points.
Space Jam 2, he scored a bunch in that game.
Yeah, exactly.
So
what about Summer League? You would have played at least one season there for the Cavs. I mean, there's another probably couple of hundred. Well, what does he play? Maybe played a couple of games there. Probably got 25. I'll see if I can find that out. Yeah.
That's something that, because I only started going to Summer League obviously way after LeBron played would have played in Vegas Summer League.
Yeah,
it's become this really cool event. It's one of my favorite things in the NBA calendar is Summer League. Could you imagine watching LeBron James in Summer League?
He only played in Orlando. He didn't play in Vegas because it wasn't really a thing then. He played 3 games and he scored 53 points. In his Summer League game. So there he goes. He's been jibbed out of a couple of hundred points here. He broke through the 50,000.
I guess it's one of those things where it's kind of like whenever people like if a billionaire gives to charity and they look at it as like this only costs you about as much as it costs you to buy like a sandwich from McDonald's. Like LeBron missing some of these points or whatever, if a couple 100 points here, a couple 100 points there, 50 points there, that's like, that would be the tantamount to I don't know, J.R. Smith missing one game's worth of points.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
man.
let's go ahead and get ready to get people out of here. Where are we heading on Friday?
Yeah, I mentioned it off the top of the show there. Ljubljana, Slovenia. Tough one to say because when you look at it, there's a lot of consonants in there and not too many vowels.
J's.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No eyes.
Absolutely gorgeous city. Gorgeous city, underrated city. And the place where I played basketball at Luka Doncic's court and then had some fun with Sasha Doncic a night or so later there where we went out and had a nice meal and had some fun. And just one of those great places that was when I went out, set out on this journey to go and play pickup ball around the world. I was like, I want to go to the Balkans, and Slovenia was the place that I was supposed to go to first. If it wasn't for a delayed flight, it was going to be where I got there. I stopped off in Frankfurt instead for a few hours. But yeah, great city, great fun, and really good group of guys. And came together for a run on extremely short notice because we had a run planned for one day and then we had to bring it ahead. And I was like, oh, what a disaster this trip's going to be. And it turned out really, really well. So very excited for that. And very excited to talk about my experience there in Ljubljana.
Yeah, I'm still not comfortable saying the name. Ljubljana.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying it correct, but
Lube,
I just
think of lube.
Ljubljana.
Yeah.
It's because there's no I, like, or there's nothing that would anyway. But yeah, that is the birthplace of one Luka Doncic. You mentioned the court that he played on. Sasa, I'm not actually introduced to him, but Lakers fans were introduced to him the other night when Luka made that insane shot, and they panned to Sasha there in the stands, and he had it was like perfectly lined up with where Luka was shooting from, and they panned to him there, and he's just like,
yeah,
oh my goodness,
I know, still shocked. Yeah.
It's a special shot when the dad who has seen him make every shot throughout his entire life, not just NBA career, but entire life. It's a crazy shot when it impresses the dad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty crazy.
Exactly. At this stage of his career, when like I think of that shot against over Rudy in the playoffs last year as one of his best as well, considering the time and the moment and the impact. And this is just a regular season game at the end of a shot clock against it was against Dallas, wasn't it? Was it Dallas?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Well, we have it here.
Yeah.
Reed's in front of him. LeBron crosses over. LeBron's in deep. LeBron needs help. He finds Luka to beat the clock. Got it! Got it! The done! That is so Luka right there.
I mean, that was a shot just to beat the clock. I mean, I don't know how he got it out of his hands, but somehow.
Yeah. My favorite part of that is Luka being so angry because he was 1 of 9 in that game.
That was his
three, and that's the one that he made.
Yeah,
and he was so angry. He was like, "That's the one I make." It was incredible, really funny. But yeah, I can't wait to head to Ljubljana with you on Friday. That'll be later this week. So make sure you guys are subscribed here to make sure you guys don't miss that episode when it happens. Until then, this episode flew by.
Yeah.
I looked up, I was like, wow, 40 minutes in. Huh, how about that? Until then, until Friday, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Leigh Ellis. This has been Basketball Passport. Please, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, 5-star reviews on iTunes, great reviews on Spotify if you guys prefer to watch it there or listen to it there. And again, Odyssey is who pays our bills. So if you guys want to subscribe there, that would be even better. But until Friday, have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. What's left of it. And we'll talk to you guys in a week or so.